outside, the grading's not done, there's this and that, and then after they leave, try to get the subs to come back.
Yeah.
I have more gray hair to get to
Well, I got an idea. Write up the check, but don't sign it. Say here.
Now you tell me
No, just give him the check, and you'll sign it when
when it's done.
when
Well, I
when
signed
he's done
it.
with his business. You'll be done with it.
Well, here's the thing: is that he's a nice guy. He's part of the Danish mafia.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
So,
yeah,
that's all good too.
yeah.
The more I bug him, it drives him crazy because his people aren't doing what he asks them to do.
Yeah.
So, all in all, I won't do it again.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, well, that's.
That's my attitude.
I hear you. I hear you.
But it's a wonderful place to live, so I have no complaints. I have almost a 300-degree view.
Yeah. Where are you at?
Right behind the U.S. Bank.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little sign that says High Meadow.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Road
Yeah.
Goes up and then runs into a dead end. I'm like on the end of the thing.
Good for you.
That's amazing.
Nice. It is amazing. 'Cause where I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and
It's flat.
it's flat. I mean, there's some places where, but for the most part, it's flat, very flat. And I remember we had cousins come from Hawaii, and they never been anywhere where there wasn't mountains. I mean, there's always mountains, and but and around here, then I think we have a nice place, and it's up. It's not at the top, but it's partway up kind of the hill or whatever. But so that we have some nice views. But some of the places, and I'm sure yours is that way. It's just spectacular, and I think I undervalued. When we looked around, I didn't.
In hindsight,
It's
right?
I think so. Although I do know people, you can say to people on top of the hill have wind.
Oh, we have wind.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they built this.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Design Review Committee on Thursday. Well, this says March 21st, but I know it's actually May 16th. On May 16th, 2024. I now call the meeting to order at 5:05 p.m. Lisa, please take the roll call.
Member Lapp,
Here.
Member Kavanaugh,
Here?
Member Martin, absent. Vice Chair Dryden Hess,
Here.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Here. Okay, Chris, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Join us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have a motion to approve the order of the agenda as presented?
So move?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Lisa, roll call, please.
Member Lapp,
Yes.
Member Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Member Martin, absent. Vice Chair Dryden Hess,
Yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to consent items. And again, Lisa, if you could introduce that item.
Items on consent are typically routine and will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the committee on any consent item on the agenda which has not been pulled by the committee for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes.
Okay, we're going to start with in-room public comments first. This is items not on the agenda. Are there anyone here wishing to speak? Anyone on Zoom, on video? Okay, any committee members, do you have any items if you would like to pull? Okay, and if not, I'll take a motion to approve consent items.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a first, Jennifer, and a second, Patrick. First, Jennifer, second, Patrick, and roll call vote, please.
Member Lapp,
Yes.
Member Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Member Martin, absent. Vice Chair Dryden Hess,
Yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to public communications for non-agenda items now. Again, we'll start with in-person comments. Didn't we just do this? Okay, anyone on Zoom? All right, we're going to move on to discussion items at this point. And we're going to start with item 4A. And Lisa or staff, will you please introduce that?
Would you be okay with us switching the items? 4B, I think, will be a little quicker. It's just one sign. 4A is going to be a little bit more extensive.
Yes, and that is in part because we are awaiting the arrival shortly of our fifth committee member here.
Right.
So,
So my suggestion is to amend the order of the agenda.
Yeah.
And formalize that. So,
and then we'll go back.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I move to amend the order of the agenda to replace 4B with 4A.
Second.
Okay, vote please, roll call vote, please.
Member Lapp,
Yes.
Member Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Member Martin, absent. Vice Chair Dryden Hess,
Yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we've reordered the agenda, and we'll take a report for item 4B, please.
So Title 4B is discussion and possible action to approve a land use permit for 1518 Mission Drive, APN 139172010 for one ground sign approximately 54 square feet in size and a modification of the maximum allowable height and size for ground size. The proposed project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and the presentation will be done by Lisa.
All right, so the applicant at 1518 Mission Drive, Solvang Inn and Cottage, is proposing to replace a ground sign that was damaged in the storm. This is the previously approved sign from 2010. This previous sign was 14.6 feet in height. The new proposed sign will be much smaller. The proposed sign is 22 square feet in size. There was an error on the staff report stating that it's 54 square feet in size on page 34, and that we're requesting a modification to the allowable size and the font, but we are only requesting the modification for the height of the sign.
Instead of 54, it's,
22.
22.
okay,
And that's in the table on the following page.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see. I see, yes.
yes. So this sign, for the height and the lettering, it does meet the consistency with the sign plan. The only standard that it does not meet is the height of the sign. The requirement is 6 feet, 6 inches. This sign is 9 feet, but it's still smaller than what was previously approved. And this does meet, this is categorically exempt from CEQA. The applicant is here if you guys have any questions.
Oh. Okay, so we have member Vaughn joining us, excuse me, Martin, Barry Vaughn Martin, joining us in the meeting now. And at this time then, do we have any questions from staff from up here at the committee? All right, then we'll go to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak? Do we have the applicant who'd like to speak here in the room for Solvang Inn and Cottages? Okay. Anyone on Zoom that would like to address the project? Okay. Then I will call public comment closed and bring the item back to committee, please, for discussion. Do we have comments here on the proposed sign for 1518 Mission Drive?
I'll dive right in. I guess I just want to say that we love the new design in terms of it being, updated and definitely will be an improvement to, unfortunately, what was an older sign that didn't, survive the last storm. Having said that, I think one of the things that we are trying to do, and people are going to get tired of hearing me say this, but just because things were approved in the past doesn't mean that they're going to get approved today. We're trying to bring a consistency to town that is without favor and just really by the rule of the book. So given that, I really have very few comments. My comments are around the size and conforming to code. And so I'm the person usually that actually brings in this issue of height because there is a view corridor that we're trying to maintain across town. And when our signs are too big or our fences or whatever it is, whatever is in the public view as we walk from place to place, when we put these obstructions up, it reduces that view corridor, and it changes and diminishes kind of your pedestrian experience. So what I would say is the sign must come down to 6'6" height, and these are not must-dos, but you may want to consider your reduction of your posts, potentially the incorporation of your address into the sign, and potentially the elimination of the LED vacancy, only in that we know that in the future, there will be a sunsetting of those vacancy signs. We believe we'll get support, and over time, we'll see those go away because they're less and less important in hoteling, I guess, and people's view of the ad or the benefit to having them. So that's my recommendation, that we make the sign height conforming as well.
Other comments from up here, committee members?
I don't have any comments myself. I think I'm just wondering about the finding, I guess, that is, you know, is articulating a finding that goes along with what you said, because I think, you know, if we're going to have those standards, then they ought to be adhered to. And I'm not sure, I mean, it states in here that it's okay if the design review committee finds that the proposed site is harmonious and so forth, but it is 2.5 feet over the, or, yeah, over the maximum allowed now, right? Or it would be.
Correct, that was my point.
Yeah.
So what I didn't want us to do was, I know that this body has been up here in the last few years, because I've been sitting on it.
Yeah, I know.
And we made a lot of other people conforming to the sign standards. And so
Yeah.
I can't really recommend changing course now. And again, I wanted to say that the prior approval from the BAR in 2010, that was their decision, and that was that body. And it's not the same time, and it's not the same body.
I agree.
So I just, from that perspective, what I know we have approved, going back a few years for hotels particularly, we have been pretty strict about it. And so I just feel like we need to maintain that.
I agree with that notation. And the comment about the vacancy sign is that moving forward, the internally lit signs are going to most likely, as Jennifer said, be sunsetting. So utilizing space for that may not be the best choice, or reconsidering that it just potentially be something that's lit from above and has a, you know, potential for an old-fashioned sign you hang there. Again, compliments to, I don't know if there are already representatives in the room, for the improvements. It is an upgraded look, and the one thing that we often look for is dimensionality to the lettering that gives it that kind of old world look. That isn't present because of the materials in this, and I understand the reasoning for that. It is something we encourage the applicants to do. The height standard, though, needs to be maintained within code. So, do we have somebody who'd like to speak? Please step up to the mic.
I would suggest reopening public comment. prior to-
Yes,
to that.
okay.
And also, I would also suggest that if there are any remainder committee member comments, those be completed before reopening up to the public comment.
So that we aren't engaging in a dialogue.
That is correct.
Okay, so before we do that, Mary Vaughn, anything that you would like to say in relationship to this sign? Chris? Okay. All right, so with that said, I think we're going to close the committee comments, but we will reopen public comment per the request of our person in the room. So, if you could identify yourself, please.
Jordan, let me see, is there a way to turn this on? Am I speaking? Yes. Speak right into the mic, please. Okay. Jordan Shepard with Signs of Success. And I just wanted to address a couple of the points the committee brought up. So the sign panel, we do have downlights on it, and then the letters themselves are raised on a carved panel.
Oh, excellent.
So
Yeah.
we are doing a smooth finish in the background, but the letters are raved, and it's definitely an old world way of doing the construction.
Okay, good.
Then, in consideration of the beautification of the city and the view lines, we believe that this location is a good candidate for an exception on a narrow basis because of a couple factors. Because this is close to the driveway, there's some safety concerns with bringing the sign down low for pedestrians as well as for traffic. So having the sign raised up a bit is going to improve view lines for driving and people walking. And in addition, the sign has some landscaping that add to the aesthetic of the sign. And if we brought the sign down, I think that landscaping would have to go away, because it would limit the design of the sign. And this sign is a historic design that we're preserving, that we recreated from an old sign that the cottages had available. So we're trying to preserve that look and that same design. So those are just considerations I hope the board will take into account in making their decisions.
Thank you for your comments. Can you advise if the committee can continue dialogue at this time?
Just ensure there are no additional public comments, and then go ahead and close public.
Okay. So any other public comments? Anybody else wish to speak on this matter in the room? On Zoom? Okay, we're closing public comments for the final time on item 4B. Committee members, any further comments? I'll take a motion to move. Anybody like to make a motion?
Well, what are we motioning on, the height, like Jennifer's comment?
No,
Are we
so-
following her comment?
No, I think you're just going to either approve or reject as presented.
There is actually additional option. So yes, you can approve as presented and grant the exception. You can reject it and send it back to the applicant. So then they would have to come back to this meeting once again based on your direction. The other alternative is to approve it, but add the modifications to it. And so if you're looking to allow approval, but at the 6.5 and 6 feet, 6 inch height, you can go ahead and do that and remove the vacancy sign. Then city staff could then approve it as a part of a revised building permit application package. Conversely, and then not conversely, but additionally, you could also take into consideration the applicant's comments and requests for the additional height, which does have some merit in terms of the, being closer to the driveway and potential vehicle safety issue. So just an FYI, but there is that one additional option that's available to you.
Yeah, I think, in comment to that, most people will take that into consideration into the overall height. So obviously, if you're going to have a concern about pedestrians or vehicular traffic, you're going to make your sign smaller, keep the post, and adjust the lettering size. So in my view, you can still accommodate it. You just won't be able to keep the lettering size the way you want it. So there is a way of meeting 6.6. There is a way of addressing vehicular traffic, pedestrian, all of it. You just have to make your sign smaller if that's what you want, if that's your priority, or a combination of priorities. So in my view, again, I am promoting that it needs to conform.
Conform and come back, or?
Conform.
And give them direction to conform on the height and the width, and
And
leave
then
it,
with
and
that,
leave it to the city to approve it once.
And they'll,
Option 3.
yeah,
That's
which is
right.
approving,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
The approval of modifications can be done by the planning manager or the designee, as long as it is
Under
compliant.
6.6.
Yeah, and overall maintains the same design aesthetic as presented here. A notation too that the comment about being higher and having a view corridor, but you mentioned that there's going to be plantings underneath in the posts, and it seems like that would be a minimal view ultimately, so I don't feel that has as much weight to it. Okay, anybody want to make a motion then?
I do want to add that you did bring up committee member, I want to say commission member, don't ask me why. Committee member asked, the neon sign, that you should probably also address that as well.
Yes, given what we know is coming in advance and combining that with the reduced height and space available, it seems like it would be in your best interest to remove the street number sign, which is rather large, and then take out the vacancy sign as well.
The vacancy sign is an investment piece because it's LED, LED and lit, so that should be a benefit. The address could be incorporated a number
Sure.
of ways, so to suggest that it's removed is probably not within our,
No, this is merely a suggestion. Yeah,
I-
not a mandate,
Right.
but a consideration for you as you're looking at it.
I was going to interject that the address, just looking at it, meets California Building Code requirements. So address needs to stay on there, just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I would
filling us in.
strongly urge to not, at least
Well, if you,
leave it somewhere on the sign,
well, if
but
you
at the
look
size that it's there.
original, it is sitting at the top.
Right.
Original one, and I think that's also appropriate if there's a height issue between the two.
So not saying any comments about the road, the street number sign, but addressing the vacancy.
a motion as such.
Yes. Help us craft a
So-
motion.
Prior to crafting your mention, just
Yeah.
for our city attorney can't unmute herself, so I'm just going to read off what. To just encourage the committee to have a more explicit discussion on why the lower height allows them to make the approval findings. So I would suggest incorporating that as a part of your motion as to why the lower height. Looking at the findings, saying that the lower height is more in tune with the architectural character, et cetera. So again, coupling those findings into the reason and rationale is the key to any direction to city staff and/or approval.
Along with the code.
Well, I would say the code is our.
Yeah,
Well, no, it
Code
is,
is our
but
mandate.
again, it's also you're making a finding. So while the code is the mandate, the finding would be consistent with the municipal code and for the community character, et cetera, because that's finding one. That's kind of your biggest one, and then just going through those findings. That's why they're there.
Okay. Thanks for that. I'll try my best. Okay. So I will move to direct the applicant to modify the proposed signage to meet the current code compliant size, which is 6 by 6 overall height and width, in keeping with the size, height, and overall design of the signs in the village area, and in keeping a consistent approach to signage generally. Does that work?
Do you want to also add in anything about the neons or the LED lit
I
sign?
knew I forgot that. Okay. With the added caveat that it's highly recommended to remove the vacancy sign from the overall design due to its potential phasing out.
I would suggest you either say yay or nay.
Okay.
Not a highly recommend.
Okay.
Yay or nay.
Okay, we deny the vacancy sign given a pending and future decision to sunset the lit vacancy signs. So it's just a matter of it being lit, not that there's a vacancy sign there. So that is the motion as revised and can be approved later by city manager if it conforms to those revisions.
Yeah,
I
direct,
second that.
okay, and just to clarify that those modifications would be approved by the planning manager or their designee.
Staff,
Yeah, okay, so we have a first
and I second.
and a second. All right, do we have a motion that is correctly crafted there? Okay, so Lisa, roll call vote, please.
Member Lapp?
Yes.
Member Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dryden Hess?
Yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates?
Yes. To the applicant, do you want to again compliment the updated design and the intent? And thank you for working with committee, or excuse me, with the planning and staff to complete the work. Okay, we're going to circle back around now to item 4A. And Lisa, will you go ahead and introduce that, or staff, please?
Yes, discussion and possible action regarding a land use permit for 1557 Mission Drive, APN 139-132-023, for proposed exterior tenant improvements, proposed on-site signage, exterior paint color, exterior lighting, and privacy fence. The proposed project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and Ms. Sherman will be doing the presentation.
We have a request for public comment on Zoom whenever that's available. Yes.
It will be coming up on this item after it's introduced, if it's this item is what is available to speak on at this time. Yeah.
You want to switch to the PowerPoint?
All right, so this application is for exterior tenant improvements at 1557 Mission Drive. This is the existing building frontage. And the applicant is proposing on-site signage, exterior paint color, exterior lighting, and a privacy fence for a restaurant that will be going in. These are the elevations facing 4th Street on the east side, and then also the frontage facing Mission for the proposed colors. This is one of 3 signs that the applicant is proposing. So sign A, this is the projecting sign that faces Mission Drive. There's existing hardware there for that. They're proposing a 7 square foot size sign. This will be wood carved, internally soft lit with a hooded light shield at the top. This is sign B. They proposed an alternative to their preferred sign. It is going to be a wall sign, which is on the east side facing 4th Street. It's wood carved as well, internally soft lit, and again with a hooded light shield. There's 2 stain options proposed. Below it is an example of what the lighting would look like. The alternative to that sign is a wood carved sign, wood stained, and then with external illumination, top mounted, with the light shining downward and is fully shielded. So for sign C, this is going to go at the main entrance on the interior patio of the restaurant. It's a wall sign, 1.5 square feet in size. This one is constructed of antique brass with external illumination. And this one is also facing downwards, fully shielded, and it's on the interior of the patio. So all of the signs do conform to the sign standards in the Solvang Municipal Code. They're not asking for any exceptions. The proposed colors for the body of the building is urbane bronze, and then tricorn black is what's proposed for the exterior doors and railings around the restaurant. The existing awnings shown in that photo, there's 2 on the interior patio, and I believe 1 on the outside on the east side. And they're proposing I can't say that word, just to switch out the awnings, otherwise they're remaining as is. And then there is existing lighting in 2 locations on the building. They're proposing to switch those out with low lumen lanterns on dimmers. So to create an ambiance for the restaurant, for patio seating, it is next to Solvang Brew, which can get kind of loud. They're proposing a privacy fence to help mitigate that. They'll be leaving the existing landscaping that is there. It's black, constructed of aluminum. They did propose to add creeping fig over it, just to kind of mesh with the surrounding area, and they will make sure that the windmill attached to Solvang Brew is visible. And the project is categorically exempt from CEQA. The applicant is here if you guys have any questions.
Thanks, Lisa. Committee members, any questions of staff to start this with?
I had a question. I see that you, in the blue folder, we have supplemental material on a couple of the
Light fixtures.
lamp fixtures.
Yeah.
But there's items that look just like that in the bundle, too. Are you providing the models
So
specific?
it's the specifications for the
Okay.
lights, yeah.
Okay, that's,
Yep.
got it.
Okay, and then just to clarify, the the lantern type placement is on the exterior that they're replacing? Just to confirm the location on these.
That one from the presentation will be on the exterior. That lantern was sent in addition to that, so I'm not sure if that was an alternative or if that's the interior lighting.
The applicant can clarify when, during their comments.
Yeah, we'll wait and do that, yeah. During public comments, we'll ask you to come up and clarify that. Okay, any other questions of staff at this time? Okay, then we're going, did you have? Okay. We're going to take it now to public comment, and we'll start with anyone wishing to speak in the room specific to this. And this would be an opportunity for you to come up and answer that question about the lighting as well.
I'm Heather Sarlos, and I'm part of the design team for the project, so I can answer any questions. Specifically, just to address the one that you just asked, the lighting, the lantern that was provided was actually just an optional small hanging lantern from the little pergola area. That was a dark sky rated option. It's actually custom made, so they do all the shielding and everything to be compliant. And then the two sconces that are shown, the little European kind of brass sconces, are only on either side of the interior patio, on either side of basically what's going to be the kitchen door. And it is under a full awning as well, a full 3-foot awning, so it has the shielding above. And it also has the seated glass to kind of help diffuse some of the light. And all of our exterior sconces are being put on dimmers as well, which will be set to a certain setting so that we're not polluting any of the stars or the views.
So just to clarify, this one then is, which one is that you're speaking of? The location on that? I've got a little confused there.
Sure, sorry. The interior patio, so as you walk into
Okay, so this is
main
the interior
courtyard,
patio, so it's an exterior light, okay.
It's an exterior light,
Yeah.
yes, but it's, will not be visible from the street in any way.
Okay. Any other comments you would like to make at this point to help us with the project?
Well, sure. We've been hard at work at this for several months, just collaborating and trying to figure out how to incorporate into the Solvang area and be a value add and be a visible add. And as we were selecting the colors, and I did deep dive and did quite a bit of research into a lot of the rules and things from the actual Danish Design Review Board. And in addition to a lot of historical documents, I ordered the suggested book and just kind of went into some of the historical color of the Danish history and how pigments were made and which pigments were used and where they came from. And anyway, it was fun. But in standing in that environment, we're really surrounded by all white buildings. And so I think I did a little kind of visual board. Hopefully you guys, I believe it's in the package, just for you guys to understand kind of some of the context of what we're looking to balance out. Because in my research and in my experience in Copenhagen or many of these towns, there's no same colors side by side. So to kind of get some of that visual interest and that balance and that depth and that just that playful visuals, you know, for the people driving by, since we're a main thoroughfare, we were wanting to do something that really kind of popped, as well as that roof line. We were very sad to have to lose the thatched roof, but that was already in process before we became tenants. And that has so much play and so much color variation. And it's so exposed that a lot of what you see from the exterior elevation is, I would venture to guess, 60% roof. So that has so much color and play. And what we have planned for the furnishings As you can see here, it's kind of that European marketplace bistro, that old world kind of style that we'd like to project. And that gets a little busy in itself. So we really wanted to kind of create a nice backdrop where that could be a feature. It could be, visually appealing and charming and welcoming, and kind of create that picture without it getting so busy with what we were doing on the architectural elements of the building. So
Thank you for not making it white.
yes, you're welcome.
All white. Thank you. That's great. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to speak? I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have anything else you would like to add?
I'm just here to answer any questions that you have. So
Super. Thank you. Anybody else in the room that would like to speak on this project?
do you want to hear about signage? Would that now be the time as well? Or
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Witt. So the signage is actually all going to be the exact same size as the pre-existing signage to make it as easy as possible. Everything will be sandblasted carved pieces. So the one thing that was discussed is that the TG letter size is larger than y'all would actually want normally, but in this case, I'd like to make the argument that the TG is the monogram, it's the logo, and it's as the tree formation of the gathering of all the local wildflowers and things that Solvang is always trying to create, that it's more of an art piece because that would be carved out of wood to be very old world. So it's anything that is leaning towards contemporary in any way is a reflection of the food and how part of what the gathering table will be, but the rest of the design is based around the materials being very old world and going with the carving and that you see throughout Solvang. I guess that's all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in the room have any comments on this project? Okay, I think we have somebody waiting on Zoom for this project. Anybody on Zoom who'd like to speak? If you could start by identifying yourself.
Yes, hi. I'm Susan Bott, representing the Save Our Stars Committee of We Watch, a Santa Ynez Valley environmental organization concerned with outdoor lighting issues. In this case, we are hoping to help Solvang comply with your municipal building code. Solvang has chosen to require all outdoor lighting upgrades and new installations to be, quote, fully shielded, unquote, thus preventing light trespass and encroachment into neighbors' properties. The light source or lamp must not be visible from a 90-degree or greater angle, i.e., it should be shielded from the neighbor's view. The two lighting fixtures proposed for the gathering table are pictured on page 17 of your DRC agenda packet. The fixture on the right appears to conform to Solvang's regulations, while the one on the left, where the lamp is clearly visible, does not. We are requesting that this left-hand lamp be replaced with a compliant one. That's the lamp that is straight up and down, and you can see the light bulb in the center. While we hope that the right-hand light is in compliance by having the lamp shielded from view, we can't be sure without viewing the manufacturer's specifications, which were not available earlier. Perhaps they are now. I think you mentioned that.
Yes.
We hope you will be able to provide us with the required information. In other words, is this lamp that has a shape that is kind of out? We don't see any light bulb. Is that because the bulb is actually up inside the shielded part? Or is it because the light bulb just isn't in the fixture yet and it will hang down below into the glass area? That would be the determining factor. And I hope you will let us help you with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak? Okay, I think that's it. All right, I'm going to close public comments and take it back to our committee here. I wanted to start by complimenting the team on a really comprehensive package. We could tell you did that dive into Danish design, and it's really fun looking at all the elements come together here. There are many beautiful enhancements to the property, and I'm going to let my team speak to it because I know that although there are some things that you have presented in an extremely attractive format, which I know would be beautiful, there are going to be problems due to current codes that we have to follow. So I'm going to open it to the committee here for comments first. So who would like to start?
Me, I am thrilled that we are going to have the gathering table in Solvang and the chef soon. That's all for now.
They're all looking at you, Jennifer.
Tiring, okay.
Yeah.
This is a gorgeous package. It's beautiful. And in
Yes.
fact, I think what sometimes bums me out about playing the role of meeting code is like saying things that I don't really maybe personally feel, but I have to say them because that's the job that I have on in this committee. So I just want to start with that because honestly, it's really would be it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. So congratulations to you guys really to do this. So please don't take this personally. But I'm going to try to keep it really simple because, again, the majority of it for me is here, and there's not a lot to do. It's just to tinker to meet consistency across town. So the first thing first is, as much as I absolutely really love the illuminated sign,
Yes.
it's beautiful and it would be beautiful. It opens us up to any logo being illuminated, and that just isn't something that we can do. We could never control people's logos, and if we gave illumination to anybody, you could imagine maybe how that could go afoul. It doesn't take a lot to imagine, big people with big logos, what that might look like for our small town. So it's stunning, but I would say I would need it to meet code, which is no external internal illumination. So to add the same kind of brass downlight over the main sign to make it compliant with everybody else in town.
And I think that, sorry to interrupt you, is that the signs that are internally lit that you've proposed are beautiful. They would be lovely in your location. We are just stuck. We cannot control content, which means that if the next applicant comes along with the completely different design and has an internally lit sign that isn't elegant in that form, there's nothing that we can do to differentiate between yours and the next applicant. And that puts us in the spot of having to be heavy-handed in something that we wish we had other options to do so. But it's either yes to all, and opening this up to all, or no to what you have in your design here.
Yeah. So very challenging to create an approval and then create an objective standard around that approval going forward. I've thought about it and I couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah.
So that, in terms of the colors, this has been controversial, I would say. Again, I totally understand the light and dark play, and I do think, again, that will work, and it'll work well. I just, again, being a longtime native of Los Angeles, and now 5 years in the Valley, I worry about it becoming a timely, trendy color application, only because I'm starting to now see it phasing out a little bit more in LA. And again, I know you've brought it back to Denmark and to the farmhouses, but I think the difference is that it's stucco, and so it's a little bit different in terms of its feel with the coloration. Having said that, that's the context. I would say that the suggested alternative of 10% reduction in color value on the body, contrasted by the 10% increase in value on the half timbers, I love that suggestion, and I'd be fine with that, rather than hemming and hawing about different colors, okay? So for me, I'd rather just go straight with that and make it a little less dark on the body and a little darker on the half timbers. But again, I think the intent is there.
I think too, when you look at your examples on your lovely sheet here, the kind of dark tones are usually offset with a light tone around the window or something. So by going with that little bit of variation between the colors, you have a little bit of contrast going on rather than just kind of having an entire kind of color-drenched building there, which is, again, very in vogue, but not in staying with our half timbers and being able to kind of see that variation. And in a way, it would become, you'd be a juxtaposition if it was all one color to the Lansby across the street, which is our exception to the rule that is often referenced as how you cannot do it. So.
True. And then the last, everything else to me is okay, and the only last one, and this is similar to the sign height. I understand the privacy fence adjacent to the brewery. It makes sense. I understand you're trying to create a cozier atmosphere. The reality, though, is that unless it was a fully enclosed patio, you're going to be open to the street. And so you're going to get the traffic. You're going to get the pedestrian traffic. And so rather than maybe creating what it will be a fairly dark blockade, I really would love for you to consider, and this committee consider, that we cap the fence at 60 inches total, and that it steps down or steps up from basically from the top, the front of the patio. So it doesn't come all the way to the sidewalk. So it starts at the front of the patio, and in the first 3 feet, that section is maybe 36 inches or 30, 40, whatever. Then it steps up to 40, 46, and then maybe 60. But it gradates up and then goes back. So from the street, you don't feel like it's this foreboding dark presence, and that it feels like it recedes back into the back of the restaurant. I love the idea of the creeping fig. That wasn't in here, and so I 100% am supportive of that. And the only other thing I would say, I looked into sleek fence. I think that the heavy aluminum material in black will, I didn't read whether it doesn't get hot, but it probably doesn't. But the creeping fig will help a lot because, again, you're trying to soften it and make it a space that you want to be in. But sometimes when height gets too high and you can't create that little bubble, it feels like almost like a really intense fence. And I think just softening it a tad, bringing it down a tad, you'll just kind of get in there, and it'll work really well. So those are really all I had. Everything else, the awnings and the lighting, I had no issue with. So that was my comments.
Who wants to go next?
I don't really have many comments. I do agree with Jennifer's suggestions that I hadn't occurred, but I think those were good suggestions. I also want to compliment the team on a terrific package. This is maybe the best I've seen
It's really been a while.
in 5 or 6
Yeah.
years I've been on there in terms of a total package.
Yeah.
And thoughtfully and earnestly pursuing what we say about the Danish, North European 19th century vibe or look or whatever. And I just wish more would do that.
Chris, any comments?
So Jennifer, every bullet point I 100% agree on, so thank you for taking care of that long monologue for me. The sign C wall entry patio downlight for me feels just way too modern. In keeping with the Danish theme, that would be my first comment. My second comment is I would like to see greater. I did like exterior paint when you were saying the contrast to be greater between the two colors. I think that will help it feel better sitting on that very prominent corner. And lastly, the fence is too tall and too ominous to me. And the step theory, I think, probably would solve the problem. I'd be curious if the creeping fig is on both sides or on one side. Those are my comments.
Mary Vaughn, comments?
I agree with that, especially about the fence. It's maybe too suffocating if it's too high. Give some air and the creepy thing.
Again, kudos on the packet. The fence comments, we had a similar discussion with Theater Fest when they did their renovations, and the fence was lowered that faces Second Street. And it's been really well received, and it's a kind of a good, positive example. I'm not familiar with a sleek fence, and I wish that we had a sample. I think of aluminum, and I think of, not very organic in its appearance. Perhaps somebody could give me a little bit more information about sleek fence than what we have in our, I just see a picture here, and I see kind of two different variations. One seemed to be a little bit open between the slats, and the other one seemed to be solid, and I'm presuming that it is a solid fence you're looking at. Would somebody like to come up, and I believe that we can ask you to answer that specific question, please.
So Sleek Fence is just one of the manufacturers that we looked into that has readily available supply for us, and it does come in two different options. One is a complete privacy fence, which is the spacing is butted up next to each other. And then they do have kind of a semi-private one, which is the one that you see that has, I think, about a ½ inch, maybe a little bit less in between, so it kind of gives a visual barrier, but not total shielding. My concern with doing that was just having spent so much time kind of over there at the property, the difference in lifestyle, what's happening next door is just a very different climate. There's families, there's dogs, there's bar games, there's tetherball flying around. There's, and that is their business. That's their format. That's the vibe there. And so when we spoke with them, we really wanted to create kind of almost not a wall, but we offered to put the fencing down the center of that planter that's existing so that they could still have plantings and have that softness and kind of add to their look and feel. And we could then have still some plantings to soften. And I presented the creeping fig just because I think, that allows it to be more organic. But the specific material, and I've run into this at, I think, a picture of our building in Los Olivos is actually on there, which I did a similar application. And because that particular pre-existing fence was actual wood and we painted it, we've had to tear off all of the creeping fig every couple of years. And you try to save it, you try to put it back up, but it never quite acclimates when the wood being dark requires actual maintenance every few years.
Sure, yeah, understood. So I
Yeah.
just didn't know if is it a more shiny finish, a
No,
matte
no, it's just a
finish?
powder coated, it is matte.
Okay.
And it's not a really harsh black, because I've seen it in person. It's almost more of an anodized bronze.
Okay,
And I like your idea, that very first part, which will actually just be our waiting area, to kind of
Yeah.
lower that, because that's not where people are dining. And
Yes.
so to have that visual, I think would be fantastic. Once you get to that planting bed area, that's where we're having seated dining. And so the hope there was just that people dining wouldn't be interacting or within a few feet of whatever was
the
going
neighbors.
on next door.
Yeah, yeah.
So unfortunately, and it was important to us too, to make sure, and it was important to Mimi, the landowner, that that historical windmill was really visible. So that 6-foot height comes to just the base of, and so it would basically frame that white windmill coming up behind it.
That was a lot of good information. I think one thing that you provided that I wasn't aware of is that this fence is proposed to go through the middle of the planter, which definitely helps soften it, not just on your courtyard side, but also on the visual. Again, looking at this as a high-profile location in a very prominent corner in the community. I think that's good. Thanks. Thank you for answering that question. Oh, just to clarify then, you're looking at, even though there's variations for both the kind of open slat and the solid, you're looking at the solid as your preference in this proposal. Am I correct?
It would be our preference for the privacy and just kind of some of the ambient noise that just filters through. There's not a
Sure.
whole lot we can do about it, and you're right about the street noise, but, you know, any advantage we can give for the conversations to be heard across the table would be helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And I just wanted to comment that seated privacy is at 53 inches, and so 60 gives you that buffer. And so that's honestly why I don't recommend going to 72, only because it just seems a lot higher than when you're seated. So it has that tendency, again, as I said before, if you're seated next to 72 inches, that's a high wall. And I understand, I completely get the adjacent use is not compatible, but I still think that at 60, it just, to me, the scale is gonna feel better relative to the roof height and the scale of the building. So that's what I feel.
Especially when it's solid fence. I think it seems from the descriptions that a 60-inch solid fence will be more beneficial than a 72 open, slight open slat fence.
I wish you could have, because I think you put in some representations of what the plantings look like, but I wish I had a photo of it if you're able to look at it when you're driving past. There are such mature, gorgeous.
Oh, they're beautiful, yeah.
Succulents that are happening, we couldn't even bear to.
Yeah, I think we've all
replace
seen
them.
it there,
And they're
yeah.
quite high, and there is quite a bit of coverage already. So when we were looking at that 60 inches, it almost becomes a backdrop for that landscape. So that was kind of part of the feel too, giving that a backdrop so that was almost like visual arts, planted art, versus it hitting the skyline and getting lost. So that was kind of when we sat around and talked it through, what we're looking at, what are our sight lines, rather than seeing, they've got multicolored umbrellas out on the patio that don't necessarily fit our
I don't know,
aesthetic,
maybe I
so.
could convince to be 66 inches
I still,
with that argument, but I don't.
60 still seems, because of the seated thing,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
You're okay with 60? Or 60?
Yeah,
right.
I'm just saying I acknowledge what she's saying.
Yeah, not to,
That's a good point.
yeah,
And the step up.
And the seated height you talked about, I think,
yeah, that's
Yeah,
the important part.
And I mean, so aesthetically as a package, right? If you are going to walk through, okay, so I'm not that tall, I'm 5'6", but if I'm walking through, I'm going to see just, I'm just going to see like the top of the fence. My husband is going to see over that fence. And so, that's not usually an issue, but it is an interesting discussion around the existing foliage that's there. Because it will sit in front of potentially of a fence that's shorter. So, I guess then if we want to keep the height lower, the foliage may have to be somewhat accommodated.
Well, and honestly, part of my concern about the fence color had to do with the foliage, because it's so dark that, it doesn't retain heat, but it can be hard to keep foliage alive that's against a fence that's that dark, even if it doesn't retain heat. So that was, kind of what I was thinking about with that material.
Question for the applicant and the committee.
Yes.
Seems like you've landed on the 60 inches of solid. The applicant entertained potential additional height as long as there's transparency to it, say 50% transparency?
The aesthetic would be of question to me then, with the, keeping it, thinking of some of the fences that are kind of lattice on the top,
Well,
which would not be this case, but.
It's not
yeah.
lattice, and that 50% transparency lattice ain't gonna work.
Yeah, no.
I don't think they have a compatible product that would get you that 12 inches of transparency.
I think the way that am I allowed to talk? Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah.
It comes kind of as a kit.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're in panels, but where I believe we have the option to, we order the posts, and then we order the certain slats that build up to the height that we want. And if we wanted to go with privacy spacing a little bit higher, so that we still had a little bit of a psychological, barrier, if you will, that I think it would still create a nice backdrop for the existing landscape and allow that to kind of be a feature rather than getting lost. And again, I am just worried about the reds and the blues and the yellows of, all the umbrellas that are so visible.
So I pulled up the top transparency that you guys have at Los Olivos.
Oh, great.
The top part.
Yes. Well,
Because that's very transparent.
that is very transparent.
Yeah.
And the intention was, and I just haven't gotten to it there, was I was going to wire and do lattice.
Well, that's what it looks like.
After the creeping fig grew up and train it.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
had to take that all down and regrow it because we had to do the
But with
maintenance.
this product, you could do that, right? So that this product, you could basically do that trellis. Actually, I was going to say that, Raphael, like, you may not need the superstructure. You may just do 60 inches and grow the creeping fig, and the creeping fig at the top of the wall is enough to create another 6 inches. I mean, you know what I mean? So maybe,
Yeah.
Yep.
maybe that's just the way we go.
Yeah, that's it. And I think important to step it down as it goes to the street. I think it's both beneficial for your business to keep that visual open that, look, there's a spot over here, but also as traveling up and, down the street in pedestrian traffic and car traffic.
Yes.
Let's continue discussing a couple of other items, and then I'm not sure if we want to wrap this all into one motion or kind of break it up between the fence
Right.
versus the signs versus the paint versus the light, just to kind of have everything clarified. The signage, back to that, you've given some options if it isn't the internally lit signs. I'm looking at page 30 in our agenda packet, where we see sign B that is the first option isn't going to work with the internally lit, and then there's choices with the same style with the gathering table either in black or in white, it would appear there, with the little overhead brass look light. And those brass lit lights would have to, of course, be dark sky compliant. And I don't see any specs on that, but we can incorporate that in. So does any committee members, do you have any comments? Because it would be one of those choices then that, and perhaps the applicant has some comments on that. because unfortunately, you are not going to be getting internally lit signage approved today.
Can I refer to the?
Yes,
designer on
please.
this one? I don't
Yes.
look for stuff.
Okay, yes, I was really hoping for the lit sign mostly because that location is, as you know, has been flipped over a few times. And I am the biggest fan in the world of dark sky. I love stars. I think that with this, the amount of illumination that would be coming from it would be the same as an oil lamp, like visually. It just is something to add some contrast. So that's fine. I kind of knew that that was going to be a hard road to drive, to deal with here. So that's why I also put in the other options of the non-lit. As far as the brass lamp goes, that there was a comment about it being too contemporary. That's actually a reference to a library and a banker's lamp from the 1910s. So it's pretty old and actually has some examples of where that is. It's also the more streamlined version is what was used most often in Danish design within the mid-century times. So it's actually the best option, I believe. Did I cover everything?
So, but back to the sign, you have images here that are option of white lettering or black lettering, if I'm reading this correctly.
I would suggest not getting into the content of the lettering.
Oh, I'm just looking at the color,
I would also suggest
not
getting
getting
into
the content of the letter. Okay, all right, understood. Never mind.
Okay.
And as far as the design of the kind of twig, lovely. So let's break this down into sections and start with the exterior paint color and the awning, the color swatches that we have here. Do I have a motion to go with the colors as presented?
I would suggest, rather than stating motion, I would suggest that you poll each individual member about the option and then making one single motion based on the polls of each individual item that you're taking.
Can you clarify? No.
So
Sorry.
you would take the first item, which is the colors.
Yes.
And then you would poll, I'm going to assume, each committee member based on committee member Dress's
Right hand, yeah.
comments. Sorry,
Yeah.
I flubbed, which would basically, if I've correct me if I'm wrong, it suggested the 10% reduction and a 10% increase in intensity in the half timbers.
Yes.
And you would poll each committee member, and they would say yay or nay. And then
Okay.
you go on to the next one, and then we wrap it up as one singular motion
Okay.
for those items listed.
All right, rather than having separate motions.
Correct.
Okay, so,
I'll jot them down for you.
thank you. All right,
And for what it's worth, if I can interject, just keeping the signs perhaps in a separate motion
okay.
for clarity.
She's back on speaker. Thank you.
Yes, I can
Attorney.
speak now.
Okay, so I'm going to ask each of you if you are agreeing with that. Mary Vaughn?
You're talking about agreeing with the
The
proposal.
the proposal that Jennifer
10%.
presented, so that
Up and 10% down.
this color, the body would be 10% lighter than this color, and the trim would be 10% darker than the color presented, as per your option in the packet. Okay, Mary Vaughn?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have and yes to me, so we have a consensus on the paint color. The next item will be,
Consensus on 10 up and 10.
Yeah, right.
10 up and 10 down, yeah.
okay, the next is the lighting. I am not comfortable with the interior light not being dark sky compliant, as that will be visible to people walking on the street, and in keeping with the code that would be able to move this project forward with the caveat that the fixtures, all the lighting fixtures meet dark sky compliance, and that the staff can assist you try to,
So are you saying specifically the visual for this internal lumen right here?
that is
Which the
correct.
lantern?
The other one
Yes.
as well, because
I-
you can't see the bulb.
Right,
So I would argue, and just for the argument of sakes here, that while I understand the comments from, the public comments were that they aren't dark sky compliant because they're not shielded, I would argue as the planning manager that based on the specifications here for both of them, that the glass itself is frosted. And therefore, although they're not completely shielded and cut off, it meets the intent of the code because those are frosted and because the bulb itself on the second sconce is hidden. Additionally, to aid in these lights are set back from a major thoroughfare, which is already lit. So really, what dark sky compliance are you really looking for outside of what's already being done?
I differ with that because I have seen other projects where this type of lighting has been approved and it stands out remarkably as I walk around in the evening. So I don't agree with that comment. It is an attractive fixture. There are options for shielded lights of a similar look, so I would not agree with that. So on that note, I'm going to go back to polling my committee members regarding lighting, that the lighting be made dark sky compliant for all lighting, and that if, and allow our staff, I'm trying to find my right wording here, to turn it over to staff for, planning department staff for approval so that we can move forward.
So on that dark sky compliance, I would suggest adding that it be fully shielded and provide details that they are fully shielded and dark sky compliant.
That. Thank
So
you.
I can have everything
Yes.
spec'd out as dark sky compliant.
And then staff, okay, let me pull my,
Yeah, dark sky compliant, I mean, I don't know,
which is fully shielded.
well,
Yeah.
why are you asking that? If it is dark sky compliant and,
Because he
it is
told,
dark sky compliant,
because he
why are
said,
we asking it to be shielded, fully shielded? If it is, I mean, if it's,
because that's dark sky compliant.
well, then we don't have to add the comment about the shielding. I mean, it's dark sky compliant,
Yeah. That's, I'm doing it per our planning
Okay.
director's request.
okay?
So, and we don't have to have that if you want to just leave it at dark sky compliant.
I think we get into the weeds a little bit, talking about,
Okay. All right, so,
I think we ought to affirm
Let's be
for,
consistent.
Well,
Yeah.
while I agree getting into the weeds, this is something where, as I've just pointed out, what you think dark sky compliant is and I think dark sky compliant clearly differs. So again, the more direction we have, so if you're looking at for it to be shielded and the bulb non-present, then that's a very clear direction to city staff to work with the applicant on what details they come in and come back with. Because again, I just alluded to that in city staff's opinion, these meet the intent of the code as designed. But
Okay.
that's just my opinion, and this is up for your all's debate. So.
okay, so I'm going to go back to approving the lighting with the caveat that it'll be dark sky compliant, fully shielded, and if you, well, I'd leave it at that. And I'd like to poll my colleagues, so I'm going to start that way. Mary Vaughn? Okay,
I completely get that logic, but I have to stay consistent now, so yes, I do agree.
yeah,
Yes.
no.
yes. One comment for you, if you do wish to take advantage of WeWatch's expertise, they're great at helping with all that. And that was the representative who spoke earlier.
Yeah, I think that the point here with the spec is not enough detail for us to determine if it is or not, and
Yeah.
that's where they came at us. And so I think that's really, it's probably fine, but I think if you just get more detail, maybe everyone will feel better.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're all custom made, so
Yeah.
I work with vendors that do all of the large,
And-
projects that have to be dark sky compliant, so they can provide all the paperwork and stuff that can be submitted for that.
Good, and they're,
Not officially certified. 'cause it's
Yeah.
different.
That's right.
they're excellent at that as well, so. Okay, so let's see, that leaves us with, sorry, Gotta- Oh,
No.
fence,
Two
fence and signs,
awnings, no,
and that's under color.
yeah, okay.
So,
It was?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Unless you think we need
No,
another.
no, no, no.
Okay. Can stay a while. So then let's move on to fence. At this point, I believe our discussion is centered around a fence that is a maximum height of 60 inches, that steps down to the street level in 2 steps, I think we were saying, in some kind of increments where the maximum height at street level is 30 or 36?
3,600
Yeah.
I'd suggest for clarification on this,
street level, actually.
Yeah, or yes, that's right, it
so
isn't.
from the, what we call it back of walk, maximum of 36 inches for up to 3 feet, and then step up then for a running length of another 3 feet, up to 48, and then finally goes to max height. So it's a 6-foot run essentially. So 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet.
Right.
Yes. Yeah,
Can I give one other just visualization? Is there is about a 3-foot slope from where that planter bed is heading down. So like we're having to build custom boxes, benches, because we can't order anything because there's such a severe slope. So that first area, when we're looking at the heights, it may be in reverse where the first unit needs to be a little higher and then we cut the next one to keep that even. And then we step up once we get to the planter bed, just to, so we don't have so
Yeah.
many jogs and you're taking into account the elevation change
yeah,
So it's just that, that's measured from the top of fence
from the top of fence to the ground.
to the ground. Yeah.
Right.
So
So
max
I'm
height,
just saying when you first, because it's such a slope up,
right.
like we would be at 30 inches is table height. You know, so we would be looking basically at the table next door. So I was just wondering if do you understand what I'm saying in reverse? So if the first one is at 4 feet because it's way down here, and then we go to
Yeah.
a smaller height so that it stays even. So you still have the same line of view, but the slope, is going up.
Yeah.
So it actually starts longer and
I-
gets.
I get what
Does that
you're,
make sense?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
Need a
it's- and
whiteboard.
it's the way we measure our
You
fence
gotta start at
height.
5 feet in the back and then step down to 4 feet and then
Whatever
3
you
feet.
want that, yeah.
But you're talking about the,
So it can't step twice.
yes.
yeah, it'll step,
Well, because the run is.
Well, visually, it can step twice, but it's tricky because of the way the grade is there.
Might I suggest
shorter
that,
than the tallest.
that the direction is that city staff work with the applicant to have a stepped fence with a height no greater than 60 inches.
Yes,
Yes,
that's a resounding yes.
yes. Okay, so I have a yes from Kavanaugh, I have a yes from Lapp, do I have a yes from Martin? Okay. Yes, okay, yes, so that's yes to everybody on the fence, and that it'll be a max height of 60 inches, you'll work with staff to take care of assessing the heights for those steps out to the street or
Is that
sidewalk.
Inclusive of the planter bed itself that sits at 24
Yes.
inches?
Yes,
So, and, sorry, last question, are you okay with the posts being a little higher to be able to train something?
this will be working with staff
Yeah,
on this.
and our code does
Yeah.
allow that, so
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
And that's what you have. to
from a
go-
visual standpoint,
Yeah.
that would be preferred.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you for clarifying.
yeah, thank you. Okay, I think we're on the final element, which is signs. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and look at all the various signs, see if we can do this all at once.
Well, what we could do is do the motion for the land use permits you've discussed and then go into the signs after.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Chelsea. So then at this point, we have,
So so from what I've heard, we would be a motion to approve the land use permit with modifications to the exterior paint color to be 10% darker on the body and 10% lighter on the half timbers. And
Yeah, it's
the
Opposite, Chelsea.
Oh, sorry.
10% lighter on the body and, oh, I'm sorry, Taylor.
That's okay. So it would be a motion to
looking down.
approve the land use permit with modifications to the exterior paint color to be 10% lighter on the body, 10% darker on the half timbers.
And
It would,
trim. Yeah.
and trim. And then it would be a modification to the exterior lighting to be dark sky compliant and fully shielded for all of that lighting. And a modification to the fence to direct city staff to work with the applicant to create a stepped fence with a height no greater than 60 inches.
Yes,
And the awning color is approved as well.
yes.
So I'll make the motion.
Okay, we've got a first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Jennifer. Lisa, roll call vote, please.
Member Lapp,
Yes.
Member Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jordan Hess.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Yes. Okay, now we're moving on to signs. And,
So might I suggest the first step is to take the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, let's take the sign exception for the internal illumination and then as one, and then decide on that, and then from there, take your options.
okay.
Yeah, yes, I think that could work. So you're talking about deciding on whether to approve the exception.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, I think we could do that.
Okay, so if I understand, we need a motion to deny the exception to have an internally illuminated signage at the location? Am I
Might I suggest that the denial should include not being able to make the findings that were listed in your staff report? And so,
Yes, and that denial is based upon staff report findings and committee comment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a first, Kavanaugh. I have a second. Second with Lapp and Lisa. Roll call vote, please, I guess.
Member Lapp,
Agree.
Member Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jordan Hess,
Yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Yes.
okay, so now you have denied the exception for the internal illumination. The committee can also now approve the signage based on the options that are provided with the exception of illumination, which has been denied.
Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion on that.
I'd clarify which options you are
Yeah.
looking to do.
Oh, you're at 31.
Okay.
Well, we couldn't say anything about the color or anything, so what are we?
Size.
What are we agreeing to?
Size.
All right, so we're looking at
A great example is wall sign B. Have
options.
options. So it was the
Yeah.
illumination, that's off the table now. So now that sign B is the other design choice, which includes the illumination that's pointed to it utilizing the brass style.
And the wood carved sign there.
That is correct.
Okay. So we have sign C is the brass entry sign. Sign B is the wood style sign. Each has the brass fully shielded light.
And then sign A would be the projecting sign, which was originally
Yes.
to be illuminated. However, you can direct city staff to approve a sign permit eliminating the illumination or other direction as given.
And the third element would be, as planning director has stated, sign A being a wood sign without the internal illumination, all to be approved by staff for any variations. Do I have a motion?
So just to clarify, make sure we're all on the same page. So it would be a motion to approve multiple sign permits, including sign A as a projecting sign without illumination, internal illumination, sign B without internal illumination, and sign C as proposed. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Well, we already said no internal illumination, but happy to repeat that. So, all right, do I have a motion to that effect then?
Yeah, I'll try it. I move to approve sign A as presented without internal illumination and any revision to be dealt with by city staff. Sign B to be approved without internal illumination, and sign C to be approved as presented.
And we have a second on that motion. Okay. Lisa, roll call vote, please.
Member Lapp?
Yes.
Member Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dryden Hess?
Yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates?
Yes. Whew. Okay. Thank you applicants for all the information and wishing you best in the new site. And when's the opening date?
As soon as we can get the building painted.
So I do have a quick
tomorrow.
comment for the applicant before they head off. I just want to say thank you to the applicant team and the applicant themselves for working with city staff on creative ways to bring this to your DRC. So even though we were crunched for time, we very much got it done in a timely fashion, as well as came up with creative ideas so that the DRC could see in how these colors would actually look on the buildings. And it was very much a lessons learned for us moving forward on how we do these applications in a much more expedient manner. So I really appreciate it, and thank you for working with city staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yay. All right. Okay, where are we now? Let's see. Okay. We're gonna, all right, now it's time for committee member comments, and I'm gonna open tonight and say we had our last General Plan Advisory Committee meeting yesterday. Woo-hoo! Oh, well, at least I'm excited, so. And congratulations to staff, and our committee has worked for 3.5 years, something like that. And that has really been a labor that was from my end informed by what we do up here, because so many elements of that plan will be used as the backbone for the new guidelines, the new policies to be codified to assist us in what we do, so that we're going to have much more clarity with objective standards that we can utilize going forward. So
I want the record to show also, I mean, I think I have a perspective of the citywide, interactions around those plans, and no group was better represented than the Design Review Committee. And really,
Well.
Jennifer and Esther were both major contributors and thoughtful presenters, as we expected. But I think that part of the plan is doing very well, and we appreciate your extraordinary efforts in that.
Well, thank you. We can't wait till it's done and we can celebrate. So, other comments here, committee members? No comment. All right, then I'll turn it over to the staff.
Well, thank you. Well, you stole my first bullet point.
Well, you can
yes.
add to it.
The GPAC did wrap up. So again, thank you, DRC members who were on there, and actually all the rest of the members that were there. It was a tremendous feat that you all did. I unfortunately was not a part of for most of it. So, but kudos to all the GPAC members that contributed to that. With that being said, because that was the last GPAC meeting, general plan update. So the Planning Commission will be hearing recommendations for adoption of the general plan and a few zoning ordinance amendments that'll go with it on June 3rd. So the final EIR, which includes what we call statement overriding considerations and response to comments, will be posted on our website no later than May 29th, 2024. Hopefully we'll get it posted a little bit earlier, since it is a rather large document. But again, what's going to the Planning Commission is the draft general plan. The comments from Chapter 4 as a separate attachment, basically taking the package as is per the GPAC's comments, little tidbits here and there, and then some zone map changes and some preliminary zoning ordinance changes, which kicks off the next phase of our general plan. Because as I stated in the GPAC, just because the general plan is done, it does not mean we get a shiny new book to look at and be on our bookshelf for the next 20 years. There is work to be done from an implementation standpoint, and we will begin that work. An update on Site C/Wildwood. This application was deemed incomplete by city staff due to some outstanding issues, particularly from the DRC's purview that included lighting and landscaping. And then, of course, unfortunately, building architecture is off the table, but there are some items that we suggested be improved to it. So the new date for the applicant to resubmit everything to the city is August 1st. Don't quote me on that, but it's August 1st or 2nd. Our response letter is posted on our website under major projects, and so you can read that to your heart's content. It's a rather lengthy letter, and so there's lots of work to be done there. But hopefully the next iteration is what's going to come back to the DRC for some consideration to those items. It's my understanding that there has been some chatter online in regards to the Rosman building. It is under escrow. The buyer is unknown at this point. However, we did receive an application for proposed enhancements to the building, including colors, swap out of doors and windows. It's actually pending payment. So once we do receive payment, city staff then will begin reviewing it and then making sure everything's buttoned up and coming back to you in a complete package, very similar to what you saw tonight.
Raphael, that was the Rasmussen's building?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just clarifying that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, very similar to, hopefully, it contains the stuff that, the details that you saw this evening. So we want to make sure our package is ready for your review and presented. So we are, again, taking our 30-day review to properly and diligently go through the application and make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and so that the discussion items become a much more pertinent discussion, as was this evening. And then we do have one application set for June DRC, so we'll stay tuned to see what ends up happening if we get more applications. We did receive quite a few phone calls over the last week in regards to signage and opening up. So that concludes my presentation.
Could we back up to committee comments for one last second? I wanted to compliment staff on the workshop that followed the meeting last time. I think it was really productive, and I see that this packet that we've had tonight that has gotten the compliments is kind of an offshoot of that conversation. So I really wanted to tell you how much that helped, I think, all of us understand our roles and be able to move forward with being better able to do our jobs.
So moving forward, once the general plan is adopted, those policies carry forward. And so with those policies, then we're actually able to then modify our checklists and start asking for those things that aid this body a little bit better. And again, it comes in the onus of what I call complete applications. So for a very long time, this body saw applications that, in my professional opinion, were incomplete.
Yes.
And so it puts the onus back to the applicant to, if we're going to be able to review these things in 30 days and get it to you in an expedient manner, they need to get us a complete package. Sure. So with that, we'll be taking a look at the end of summer on updating our checklists and providing the items that meet the criteria of the general plan policies that are there, and then again giving you a better package as we're trying to again give you as much information as possible and boiling down those discussion items to what we did this evening, which was we huddled you back down to the key items that needed to be discussed.
Yes, and much appreciated. And July 8th or 7th, I believe, is the date that is projected for City Council approval of the general plan.
Yes, July 8th, and then if everything goes well, we do have, unfortunately, a 30-day EIR waiting period to make sure we don't get sued, but it'll go into effect, and then that begins our next steps, which is the fun stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, really the big important part for all of us sitting here and at planning. All right, I think that that's it. No other business. I adjourn the meeting at 6:39.